Good evening, everyone, and welcome to Borough Hall. My name is Tanya Cantlow-Cockfield. I'm the Assistant Counsel to Brooklyn Borough President Eric L. Adams. To my right, I have Ina Gusenfeld, who's the Land Use Coordinator, and to my left, Richard Barrick, who is the Director of Land Use. There are two items on the agenda this evening. Please note that this hearing is being recorded to comply with the public law for transparency. It will be available for viewing on Borough President Adams' website, brooklyn-usa.org, or on the One Brooklyn channel on YouTube. Again, web viewers may submit timely comments to Ask Eric at brooklynbp.nyc.gov for Borough President Adams' consideration. Please call the first item and let us begin.
Calendar item number 1170146 PQK.
This application submitted by the New York City Administration for Children's Services and the New York City Department of Citywide Administrative Services pursuant to Section 197-C of the New York City Charter for the acquisition of a child care center located at 921 Hegeman Avenue in Brooklyn Community District 5. Such actions would facilitate the continued provision of child care services at this site according to a lease. Community Board 5 will vote on this application on August 14th, 2018. Borough President Adams will hold off making any decisions until he hears from the board. Would Kenneth Robinson, the representative from this application, please state your name for the record and present the application?
Good evening, representatives of the Borough President's Office, members of the public. My name is Kenneth Robinson. I am with the Office of General Counsel of Administration for Children's Services, and we're here to ask that the Borough President approve our application to continue the site as a child care center. This has been a child care center for many years, going back to 1971. It was built as a child care center and has always been a child care center. It's a major asset to the community. This space is contracted to provide early learn services for parents to qualify as early learn participants. They must be eligible, meaning the families earn to up 100% of the federal poverty level, and the family must have a reason for care. These reasons include working, being in school, being in a training program, looking for work for up to 6 months, or not having a permanent home. Again, this has been a major asset to the community. We're asking that it continue its function as such, and I and my colleagues will take questions. Also here is Michael Bitar of ACS's Division of Administration, Lease Enforcement, and Dale Lazarson of the Lease Enforcement Unit of DCAS.
So, Mr. Robinson, we have actually 5 questions. The first question, it is in the interest of the community for child care facilities to serve neighborhood residents. What is the number of contract seats, and what are the criteria for selecting children to attend the center when vacancies arise?
There are 80 contracted seats with as of about a month ago, an enrollment of 79%. The criteria is that the family meets the certification that they're within 200% of poverty level, that the family has a reason for care, which includes working, school, vocational training, up to 6 months of job hunting, or not having a permanent home.
Borough President Adams had been concerned that the city lease terms were not as long as they have been in the past. Because more financially lucrative opportunities are available to landlords, childcare facilities are at risk of losing their leases and being unable to continue serving their communities. Borough President Adams appreciates that unlike lease renewal requests at the start of this administration, when leases were proposed for 5 years, applications are more likely to be calling for 10-year leases, and most recently for 2 5-year renewal options, as has been advocated consistently by Borough President Adams. What is the anticipated duration of this lease, and what rights would the city have to renew?
I will defer to DCAS on that.
Good evening. My name is Dale Lazarson. I'm with DCAS in the Real Estate Services Group. And I'm sorry, if you wouldn't mind, can you repeat the question for me?
Oh, sure.
Thank you.
What is the anticipated duration of this lease, and what rights would the city have to renew?
Yes, thank you. So we have proposed a 20-year lease. However, that is qualified based on city charter limitations. So it would be maximum, up to 20 years, but in no event longer than 21 years for a number of reasons. But we do also have on the table a proposal for at least one 5-year extension option. So for ULURP purposes, obviously an unlimited duration would be very helpful for us to achieve the longest term possible from flexibility.
Just ask, in terms of the right to acquire the property, should that come up, will that be a consideration of the lease terms?
We are in dialogue about that right now. We hope that we would be able to secure a preferential right to purchase. However, the owner of the building recently purchased it, so whether or not we'll be successful is to be determined, but we certainly are in dialogue about that.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
As part of Borough President Adams' Cross Brooklyn Initiative, or Connecting Residents on Safer Streets, the Borough President believes that making street crossings safer for children and seniors should be a priority. The Child Care Center's location where street crossings exist along Hegeman Avenue, at Linwood and Essex Streets, provides an opportunity to improve street safety by introducing a variety of traffic calming measures. What steps is ACS prepared to take to coordinate with DOT to address pedestrian safety along Hegeman Avenue?
I will defer to Mr. Bitar for that.
My name is Michael Bitar. I'm from ACS. I'm an assistant architect, and I'm familiar with the site. You said, yes, there are 3 streets adjacent to this property because it extends from one street to the other, from Essex and Linwood. Hegeman is a 2-way street. The city prepared the scope of work and did include safety fenestration for the site steps back a little bit, about 20 feet from Hegeman and then 15 feet from both streets. The city is currently in dialogue with a representative from the mayor's office who has access to the Parks Department and DOT. And ACS is very much aware of the need for increased safety for pedestrian crossing, especially the children. The children are carefully dropped by their parents and picked up by their parents. And it appears that those intersections are quiet in terms of vehicular movement or traffic, and I hope that answers your question.
It does, thank you. Part of Borough President Adams' vision for Brooklyn includes the beautification of our streets while addressing best stormwater management practices. What consideration has been given to incorporating streetscape improvements to existing features, such as adding a street bench as part of DOT's City Bench initiative, and expanding the treat pits to advance best stormwater management practices through utilization of rain gardens?
We have begun including these issues in the SOWs, and we're hoping to have the rain the rain collection devices, and also having child-friendly murals and paintings and drawings on the outside of the facilities.
And our final question for this application: it is Borough President Adams' policy to maximize job opportunities for Brooklynites while with local businesses. Therefore, when hiring opportunities arise, how does the Child Care Center go about filling such opportunities, and what steps might be taken in the future to promote local hiring?
The way that the facilities, and this is not ACS, but the providers themselves would advertise would be, there are websites for daycare providers and for early childhood teachers, also advertising in schools of early education. And I have actually seen in one or two child care programs advertisements for I can't speak for this particular facility if I've seen it, but that's one of the ways that our contracting providers do advertise. And a way of increasing in the future is word of mouth, or perhaps advertising in local, in the communities of job openings.
Okay. Is there anyone here that would like to speak that has not submitted a speaker slip? Okay.
Okay, calendar item number 1 is closed. Thank you. Calendar item number 2, 180188ZRK.
This application is submitted by Red Apple Real Estate pursuant to Section 201 of the New York City Charter for an amendment to the New York City zoning resolution concerning Article 10, Chapter 1, Section 11, special ground floor use regulations within the special downtown Brooklyn district. Such actions would modify these requirements in order to allow all non-residential uses permitted by the underlying zoning for buildings fronting Myrtle Avenue between Ashland Place and Fleet Place in Brooklyn Community District 2. Community Board 2 voted to approve this application on June 25th, 2018. Would Rachel Scull, the representative of the application, please state your name for the record and present the application?
Hi, my name is Rachel Scull. I'm associate at Greenberg Charig. We're representing Red Apple Real Estate, the owner and applicant, the owner of the property and the applicant on this application. Frank Cresci is here from Red Apple. As was just stated, we are seeking a text amendment to Section 101-11 and Map 2 of the Special Downtown Brooklyn regulations of the zoning resolution. Currently, these regulations limit the use groups that can be located on a building's ground floor within 50 feet of a street line on a retail continuity designated street. And this amendment would lift those restrictions on the south side of Myrtle Avenue on the block between Fleet Place and Ashland Place to allow all non-residential uses permitted by the underlying zoning districts. Sorry, we have a presentation so that I can show you a few maps. Okay, well, can start without that. The property is made up of block 2061, lots 1, 101, and 110. Those are the 3 lots fronting on Myrtle Avenue, south side of Myrtle Avenue between Fleet Place and Ashland Place. They are zoned in an R71 district with a C24 commercial overlay in the special downtown Brooklyn district. The property is improved with 3 buildings. 218 Myrtle was completed in 2010. 180 Myrtle Avenue was completed in 2015, and 81 Fleet Place was completed in 2016. Altogether, the buildings have about 530 residential units and right now have ground floor commercial use. Currently, the 3 buildings together contain about 34,000 square feet of ground floor commercial space divided into 18 storefronts. All of 218 Myrtle spaces, 2 spaces are filled with commercial tenants. Half of 180 Myrtle space is filled, and all of 81 Fleet Place is vacant on the ground floor. The vacancies that have resulted are despite the owner's efforts to market these spaces since before the buildings were completed. They've worked with brokers, they've worked directly to try to fill the spaces with commercial tenants, really haven't had any luck. And more recently, they've been approached by community facility tenants seeking to rent these spaces, but have not been able to sign any leases with these tenants because of the retail continuity restrictions. So as explained earlier, the proposed text amendment would lift these restrictions, allowing all non-residential uses permitted by underlying zoning, which would include community facility uses. And I'm happy to answer any questions that you have.
So we have 2 questions for you. First question is, what consideration has been given to incorporating community facility uses that would address the needs of nearby NYCHA residents, such as an affordable medical care provider or child care services, as has been previously expressed by Community Board 2 as part of a nearby ULURP request?
The owner hasn't spoken to NYCHA residents yet. You have been approached by not-for-profit medical tenants as well as child care tenants in the past. The tenant would seek to provide services that would appeal to residents throughout the area, including NYCHA residents, because they're really looking for tenants who will be viable in this space. And they're happy to reach out to resident or tenant organizations that you might suggest.
And the last question, what steps is the applicant prepared to take in order to connect local nonprofits to the available commercial ground floor space for community facility use?
The owner anticipates reaching out directly and through brokers to area not-for-profits. Their main concern is filling the spaces with financially sound tenants whose uses will be viable in these spaces. And if your office has any suggestions for not-for-profit tenants who would be a good fit, we welcome all suggestions and introductions. Thank you.
Thank
So
you.
just want to follow up quickly. So is there, not that you have to say it on record, but a minimum price per square foot that needs to be met to proceed with the tenant?
I think Frank could better answer that question than I could.
Hi, Frank Kresge, Director of Real Estate Operations for the Red Apple Group. We currently have the commercial space and have been marketing the commercial space, as Rachel said, before we opened it up. And the rents right now are at market. I'm sure for the right type of tenant, we would consider, going a little bit below market if necessary, if it was the right fit.
And in terms of fit out of the space, is much work required to fit out the space based on how you've constructed it to date, or?
That's a good question. It really is specific to the tenant. We have 3 tenants in now in the one location with the 4th. Everyone has their own needs and requirements. It depends on what the operation is. But basically, the setup is all the commercial space is fitted up with the proper plumbing for bathrooms, heating, et cetera. Everything's ready to go. Everyone comes in and, of course, puts their own touches, their own specifics that they want into it. But it is ready, white boxed really at this point in time, and they can add as they need to.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Okay. The hearing on these items is now closed. Thank you for participating in this public hearing. Borough President Adams will review the applications we heard today and will soon submit his recommendations to the City Planning Commission. Borough President Adams would like to take this opportunity to remind you that the City Planning Commission will hold a public hearing on these items. The hearing is now adjourned. Borough President Adams would like to remind those viewing on the website that timely comments can be submitted by email to askeric@brooklynbp.nyc.gov. Thank you.